Dude, can you get out of the way,
Honored
bud?
to be on stage with you, Steve.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the crowd, we've been having some great chats back behind the stage here. Why don't you tell the crowd a little bit about your story and your background and getting into and how you love blockchain so much and why it strikes a chord with you.
Well, God, it takes me back to the early days of personal computers where nobody thought businesses didn't at first think it was going to be worth anything. And just a bunch of us thought, oh my gosh, it'll be a different world if we all have computers. And it was such an exciting time. We said, oh my gosh, a computer can give you more ability. It can make a person more capable than they were. They can solve their own problems rather than turn a program into their company's computer and let the company solve it for them. And it was just all this kind of, it gives you a kind of a type of freedom, being in control of things and not somebody else. And that was just the drive. And it was like, we can make people more powerful, more masters of their own destiny and all that. And that was the reasoning. And I think some of these big transformations, they're sometimes called disruptive, are happening. And right now, blockchain, my favorite conferences to go to are blockchain, to find people that are really more educated up on it and can speak about it and its issues and effect on the world, even than I can. I don't have enough time to be a total developer, blockchain developer and all that, but I really like a lot of the aspects of it. It basically lets you, for example, I mean, you could look at just Bitcoin as the example, the gold, and it's just like, oh my gosh, no control anywhere, and it really works. And people said that about small computers in the early days. It won't be worth anything. No big company would invest in it. My company, Hewlett-Packard, turned me down 5 times. So it's like the new thing, you know, things that are exciting and new, you know, are what drive us a lot and push us. I would much rather be around the interesting people and the interesting things, the things that they make TV shows and movies about, than I would to be about real successful, accomplished people, you know, who run their companies and acquire things and do that kind of business. That's not my life. So anyway, so it's good to be here. My favorite other conference, I can't forget it this year, was, you know, was Chain Exchange in Las Vegas. And yeah, it was just, it's really like, I like
There's nothing on Crypto Invest Summit though, right?
because everybody's talking about new ideas, new ways things can be done. And it takes me back to the early days of the internet. And they were all right because our entire life is kind of run on internet apps and things like that now, but the company's all folded for a while. It doesn't happen instantly, and I see that going on with blockchain. In my travels around the world, I run into example after example after example, and sometimes I'm even judging contests, and people are coming up with applications for blockchain technology that are so different a way of living than we have before. And I love to see culture change, but culture resists change too. And like the internet came under a lot of control. Other people want to control things that are equivalent to currency, for example, because that actually leads to a lot of wealth of countries, is how they can control the currency. So,
yeah, you mentioned,
I like the fact that it's like rebellious. And when we talked about our little small computers in those early days, this is a rebellion. We're starting a rebellion. People are going to have, you know, things they never had before and be on their own. And that was true. And the internet, early internet, oh my gosh, it's free, it's everywhere. Now we find out that it's restricted and it's not everywhere. But at least when you have distributed blockchains, distributed blockchain everywhere, it's like nobody really does have control. I really like that idea.
let's talk about that a
kind
little
of
bit.
freedom.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So you're talking about change and you're talking about new decentralized applications. There's so much noise in this space. What applications, what use cases, or more specifically, what applications, decentralized applications, do you feel are disrupting incumbent leaders or are really moving forward with the blockchain space?
Currently, it's very hard to pinpoint which ones are disrupting. Disrupting to me means you see the signs of companies going out of business, or the way they were doing things in the past going out of business. However, you look at big companies, not just IBM technical companies, but a lot of banks, they're jumping on. They want to be on top if there is some disruptive force here. Do you actually see the disruption happening? It's happening kind of slowly. But that was true of all the internet apps in the early days. The big thing that led to it was a platform so that hundreds of thousands of people that had some technical knowledge could sit down and actually program up their own applications and try their own things, build their own hardware, and take the market. A platform. A platform is really an essential goal to spreading the blockchain development far and wide. Every single blockchain application I hear about, you know, whether it's manufacturing or materials, sources, or history of real estate or voting, or every application I hear about is whoa, this is so intriguing. Life could be very different. And you still have this question, would it work? And eventually it boils out to which ones do work. And we need to have, one bowling pin after another. And it may take a while to start because people can't change their ways easily to things that they don't understand fully inside, How can you even know if your cryptocurrency or your tokens, are they secure enough? How do you know? It's very, very difficult times.
Appreciate that. Let's talk about let's take a step back in time there. Where did the vision for usable technology, a computer in every house, when did that come to you? Where did it come from? And what was the aha moment? How did that evolve?
I had a lifetime of developing a skill that I never thought would even be a job in my life necessarily. Oh yeah, I was going to be an electrical engineer. I was top math science student in my schools. And I was going to be an electrical engineer. I wanted to be a teacher second. That was important to me. How do you teach young people to come up in the world is the world that we have and that we get? And I became so skilled at something, designing computers when you couldn't find a book on computers, you couldn't afford a single chip. I'm in high school. You couldn't go to a bookstore and find a book or a magazine describing it. Somehow I taught myself how to do it based on little logic diagrams I stumbled into in a weird manual for engineers only, journal for engineers only. And so I was really skilled, and yes, I wanted my own computer. That wasn't change the world like you're talking about. When you say this vision to really increase everybody, it really kind of happened. Here I am at a stage, I can design anything really quickly, build up project after project after project while I worked at Hewlett-Packard, designing the hottest product of its time. And I didn't even have a college degree, but I was a design engineer of the scientific calculators when they were brand new. And that division, Hewlett-Packard, drove the whole company positive when every other division, HP, was losing money. We made the company profitable. We had the hot product of all time. And so I'm doing all this, but I'm doing side projects. So I designed calculators in the daytime, and I was such a geek, I didn't have a chance of a girlfriend or a wife. So I'd go home at night, watch Star Trek, and have a TV dinner. I'd go back to work, working on designing little things. Eventually it took me into video games, became a big part of my life, and eventually the computers came out of that. But the real vision that you're talking about, was there an aha moment? It was probably the first night of the Homebrew Computer Club. This club did not have a name. And there were maybe 40 of us that met in a garage, 30 or 40 of us. And I was there the first night because I thought I'd show off my technical prowess. That was the only way I could talk to people. I was so shy. And I'll show them my designs for how you could make a video terminal that would get on the ARPANET. The ARPANET was sponsored by the US government, and it was the forerunner of all of today's internet and everything, connecting long-distance computers. It was the first time there were only 6 computers on this ARPANET. And I had to build a device of my own that I could type things over a modem to a faraway computer, and it could type back to my TV set. I couldn't afford any input-output devices. Teletype cost as much as a car or 2 cars, and I could never afford that. But I had a TV. So I just unscrewed the back of the TV and ran a wire inside and touched it to the right places and set my data in. And now I could type to faraway computers. And I thought I'd go show this off at a club. And started out, and they were interested in little computers, affordable computers based on microprocessors. But their computer was a raw box that was computer architecture inside with switches and lights and push buttons and do stuff, and it really couldn't do anything. And I had built my own of those 5 years before, the same week that I met Steve Jobs. And so I was kind of well beyond that in engineering and thinking and wanting to make products that are usable for people. And that night, I was around other people in this club, and the club grew to over a couple hundred members. We'd meet every other Wednesday night, the most important day of my life, because I would listen to Stanford professors and people talking about a people revolution. People were going to have tools in their life. It was going to change communication forever. You'd be able to type a message into a computer, and within 1 hour, 100 people could read your message over modems. This is true. This was, my gosh, that was an exciting number.
Amazing.
And we'd have education change, and the geek would be important, and whoa, I wanted to be a part of this revolution, and my skill was designing equipment. So I got to work and built up my computer real quickly and showed it off, gave away my designs for free. Because I wanted the revolution to happen. I wanted other people to have access to be able to build their own. I didn't want to start a company or anything like that. Steve Jobs was out of town. He didn't even know the computer existed yet. So don't believe that movie. Don't believe that movie where Ashton Kutcher as Steve Jobs comes and gets me in a basement, takes me down to a club to show off my invention. I was a hero at the club, showing it off every 2 weeks. Steve came into town. He'd never been to the club. I took him. when Steve said, let's start a company, it wasn't to build a computer at first. It was to build a little PC board that he understood, because he was into selling surplus electronics. But, engineering, the people who actually know how to construct things, software or hardware, and work projects through to completion and suffer with all the things not working right, trying to solve it and get it working. That's my kind of person.
Through that whole process and through your other experiences in building up Apple, would you do anything differently?
I'm one of those people, I grew up with formulas of philosophies of life that I developed when I was around 20. Your personality settles down between 18 and 23. Decide who you're going to be. I could talk about Steve Jobs in those periods and who he became in that period of time, because I knew him before and after. But I thought out my philosophies of life, and I read an article, I think it was about Sumner Redstone or somebody, with Viacom and buying all these companies, and he was real accomplished in life. And I said, do I want to be that guy, or do I want to be the guy out there with my little electronic pranks, playing tricks on people and laughing and smiling and all this? And I said, no, life should be about happiness. And I boiled it down to one simple formula: smiles minus frowns. H, happiness, equals S minus F, smiles minus frowns. And if you worry, and the frowns part of it, yes. And so I do a lot of fun things in life. Everything I did in productive and work had to have at least breaks for fun, if not total fun throughout them. Build in the fun. But the frowns, keep away the frowns. I learned, don't ever argue with anyone, because you both don't get anywhere with a line of reasoning. You have different reasoning, like politics. Don't argue. You don't care. And also, if things go wrong, your car gets dented, what's the constructive path? I got to go fix the car. It's not, I'm going to be so mad forever, I'm going to let it give me frowns. Don't have those frowns. So I was very successful. You can't go in later life and say, this is a good philosophy, I'll live by it. But that was my personality. And so not frowning. I forget what the original question was.
The question was, did you do anything different?
Yeah, different. So you don't want to look back and say, I did something wrong. If I would have done differently, oh my gosh, it would be a better world. That gives you frowns. That's something to frown about. So I don't look back at that. Also, my mind was actually pouring out magic. I go back and look at my designs from that period of time. How could any human being ever have been thought that way and gone so different paths than normal, and come up with these great ideas that really help make the world? So I don't even understand it. And sometimes people would say, well, your addresses on this Apple II computer, they didn't go like we're taught in school. 0 to 40, 41 to 80, and 81 to... They didn't go in the normal order of things. They bounced all over. No, I would go back. I said, I had the good mind when I developed it, and I knew why it saved a couple of chips, and it saved steps in software to put a pixel at a certain location. It actually saves steps over what we're taught in school. A lot of things that we're taught in school are just made by human beings, and I always favor things that come from science or nature. I mean, look at blockchain with no central control. It's just out there being controlled. There's no human being involved. That's one of the things I love the most about it. The fact that with Bitcoin, you can't create more Bitcoin just by being a human being. Human beings do a lot of stupid things, like, why do we have months? Why do we have months? Why don't we just have the day of the year? 0, 1, 4. The 0 tells you the season in your head. You do it as quickly as with months. The 0 will tell you the season. The next digit tells you how many tenths you're into it. And the next digit is which of the 10 days of the week you're on. It'd be so simple. Well, the trouble is our calendar was based on Roman times, and Roman numerals don't work that
Some
way.
people are better with words, Some people are better with numbers. You just don't know what you're going to get. It's tough.
Yeah, but I love numbers. Everywhere I go, I try to make patterns out of numbers.
I figured. I didn't think you were a word guy. I was just, just sticking around.
I can learn 903. 9 and 3 are both multiples of 3, so if it's got a formula, it's a good room. That's how I judge the room. Not by what's inside, it's what's on the door.
So happiness, okay, so smiles minus frowns, that's what we got for happiness. So you're a big jokester, you're a prankster when you want to be. Tell us how you keep those frowns away every day doing, what's your favorite type of way to joke, or what's a prank that you feel like you remember?
Okay, well, pranks don't keep frowns away. Pranks bring you smiles.
Okay.
Usually.
See how much I know about the equation.
So many pranks in my life, but I remember my first year of college when Introduction to Computers was a graduate course, and I got an A+. But I went down to Radio Shack, bought a high-speed transistor and ran some coils. I was a ham radio operator since 10 years old, and I built a little transmitter, and when I tuned it on, I could jam the picture on a TV set in our dorm. But we only had one color TV on campus in those days. This is a while ago. So I went over to the color TV everybody would watch at night. It was in the basement hall of a girls' dorm, and I tuned up my jammer, and it fuzzed up the picture. Didn't jam it, just fuzzed it up. A friend of mine, I don't know, we hadn't planned this or anything, he waxed the TV, and I made the picture go good. And then a little later, it'd go bad, and he'd whack it harder and harder. And it would always fix the TV. So for weeks, they put one person in a chair right next to the TV. Whose job it was to fix the TV. They had fine-tuning control. Reach up and do the fine-tuning control, I'd make it go good. Pull his hand back, I'd make it go bad. So I should have got a degree in psychology at this point. Pavlov would have been so proud of me, I would have gotten an A+. And I got it to where a guy stood on a chair with an antenna in the air to make the TV work. Another time, a hand on the middle of the TV set and standing up, he had a foot on a chair. He put the foot down, it went bad, and he said it was a grounding effect. So I had a lot of fun. And I also heard that double crankism is good too. But you know, these pranks, I'm gonna lead this back to creative thinking for designs and even blockchain efforts. But I built one of my TV jammers into a magic marker pen. And because when I took that computer class,
like James Bond stuff.
When I took that graduate course in computers, I got the A+ in. Most of us had to watch it on 4 TV sets. The professor was live in another room with the upperclassmen. And I kind of tuned it in to see if it would work on those TVs, and it hardly jammed the TV next to me at all. But it jammed a couple on the right-hand side. They got fuzzed up a bit. I thought I'm going to turn it on, see how it works, and then turn it off. That was my plan. 3 TAs stood up in the front of class. I didn't know we had TAs. I thought we were all students. They stood up and they looked us over. Who's got the transmitter? Small cut, and I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? If I turn it off, they'll see me. I waited a lot through class. They're watching us closely for the transmitter, making announcements on the TV. And near the end of class, there's this guy under the TV that was jammed the worst. He picks up his books to leave early. And he starts walking out the door before the rest of the class. So I made the TVs go in and out while he walked. When he went out the door, the TV went perfect. And the TA pointed at him, one TA pointed at him. And later I heard from a friend, the TA said, there he goes. I learned that one. Yeah, so keeping a lot of that in the humor. The more you have, it's electronics, you can do things that other people don't know exactly what's going on. And I'm sure this would apply to all programmers and Bitcoin people. And it's fun to kind of trick people for a while. Not to be destructive though. You know, never that. That should not be the point.
Tell us what the best piece of technology you've ever owned, and why that one?
I have so many.
We talked about it.
I have so many. Some of them best might mean emotional. When I was, maybe 9 years old, I had a 6-transistor radio. Oh my gosh, and I could take it to bed, and I could tune in AM stations from far away at night, and I could listen to music all night long while I slept. So that was a huge emotional experience that I'll never ever forget. Obviously, building, I built so many projects that were so fun. I built Breakout for Atari. I designed that for Atari, down at Atari. The Apple II computer was probably the highlight of what technology that I loved, because a lot of people think about, well, it was a great computer, you could pull it out and use it in school for all these things, and had all these software for it. Wait a minute. The Apple II computer was also the first time ever that arcade games, well, like arcade games, things moving around on a screen, arcade games were colored. Never before the Apple II computer. And arcade games were never software. An arcade game, you take Atari, 150 chips, 1,000 wires, with skilled engineers hooking them up for 6 months to a year to make a prototype of a game idea. Now a 9-year-old kid in software could write a game with moving colors on a screen. They could write a game in 1 day. This was a huge step that arcade games became software and they became color. So that was a very important machine that I'll love forever. Obviously the iPhone. We went through stages with the Macintosh being so much like humans, and then the iPhone, everything on it worked, and you had the internet carrying around with you. It would have failed except for, and so would our early Apple II have failed, but things happened in technology, broadband, internet, especially mobile broadband came, and things got fast enough we can send videos to our machines. So that was a very important, great piece of technology. The one that's made the biggest difference in my life of all Apple products, the third-party app store. I don't know, I look at what I do in my life and it saves me time and energy. What would I have done without it? And it's generally third-party.
What's your favorite game? What do you play?
Favorite games? Well, I used to play arcade games when I was young, man. I even had a home full of them, and I played Defender for years and years and years. Got to where the 1,000,000-point score, I could wrap it over, and it had a bug. That's what you try to do. Get to the high end of the number digit it has, and get beyond that, and see if it has a bug in the game, and it did. So that was probably the one I was best at. Nowadays, after that, I had kids. I eventually had kids. They got better at games than I could.
So you're playing Fortnite with them.
So now I just want to play simple, quick little card games that are over in 5 to 10 minutes. As long as the current download to my computer is going on, I can play a game.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And of course, Segway Polo is a sport. I like that. I was on the team that invented that sport. No, it's a big worldwide thing. If you look it up now,
Did you have a position that you played, or?
I had a position that I usually played, but sometimes it was forward and sometimes it was on the sides.
I heard that gets physical a little bit.
No, Segway Polo, all the rules are
Wrong
against
sport.
collisions and stuff like that. Yeah.
No collision sport.
And you can't speed up your segways. No, but it was a lot of fun, big part of life. But and games are fun. Competition is fun.
So let's talk a little more about blockchains.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk in the space. I'll get real deep, detailed question for you first. There's a lot of talk in the space about the future of blockchains and which chain is best suited for what use case. DEPOS chains like EOS have been controversial but have been functional. Ethereum has been criticized for its delays of staking and sharding and still boasts of barreling 7 transactions a second, depending on where you look. However, Ethereum still seems to have the most amount of developers in its community by a factor of 30 when compared to the next smart contract platform. Are you a fan of Ethereum, or do you have a favorite chain, and why?
Well, my first response is TMA. You had a couple you left out there. TMA, too many acronyms.
It's like a fedora, one per crew?
Yes, and I think that, I relate it to technology that I was familiar with, both hardware and software, and new technology building platforms came about. New types of chips for hardware, new programming languages for software, higher level languages and concepts, methodologies changed. And it's like you could have your favorites, and what does it work out? Is there one that's always superior to another? Is a real English-like scripting language better, or is C better, the language C, which is confusing to normal people? And so I had my preferences was all. As far as, Bitcoin really got our attention towards what blockchain could be. All the advantages are there because there is no creator, there's no owner, there's no company involved here, there's no central control. So it caught our attention and everywhere I go in the world, I run into huge numbers of people that are developing different applications in life, things that we do in life that'll be on blockchain. I don't always see that their blockchain development is going to be as pure as Bitcoin, like a certain fixed number maximum Bitcoin that can ever exist. I love that purity, that sort of purity. And I don't always see that to be the case. And I don't always see that sometimes or for a business model, there is some central control that you don't see. I mean, I don't even like the idea of the tokens will vote on who's the block master to save time, to make the transaction speedier. I don't know if I like that because I don't like voting, because voting is what fights democracy, it's what is against democracy. If you want democracy, you have a lottery. You have a lottery. Random people from all walks of life would run our government. And that would be a lot more democratic than what we get is just fight two parties versus another. And so, and we have to be scared about security in every which way. So as blockchain applications come to be, and some of them are successful to certain extents, they're going to be judged by which ones have security failures. It's 2018, and that's the life we got. So, but I'm not a fan of anything in particular. I do like the fact that in my travels I found that there were a lot more people using a platform, Ethereum. When we came out with our computer, it was a platform. Here's all of our designs, all of my designs, all of my software. And you could see how to write your own programs and examples and how to plug in your own parts. In the early days of computers, these were not known sciences. There weren't books on it. Here's how you would make a card that connects to a printer, and you put in your own little software on the card, a driver on the card. It was a platform, and that meant that thousands of companies started up. Sometimes they were a high school kid in his bedroom was hooking it up to some kind of weird musical keyboard before we had MIDI, before MIDI existed. Weird little inputs and making things work and they were selling software packages, games was a start for it. But it was a platform for everybody else to contribute things in their life. I said on the iPhone, the third-party app store is a platform in a sense. It's kind of an open way of thinking. And Ethereum was more of a platform. Bitcoin is kind of said and done and is what it is. But Ethereum was a platform that you could adapt to other applications. The trouble is when you adapt, you're like a programmer. You might have bugs, you might have flaws in your own adaptation. So But I don't have any one particular favor of the new methodologies for making, faster transactions was the one you referred to, or, more immediacy. In some cases, I find that, for example, I just got Bitcoin only to experiment with it myself. I'm not an investor. I don't invest in these things. If any of you have platforms and you want investment, I do have a business advisor that studies those things and decides between them. You have to get a card from me. But I used Bitcoin, and I just went on and I wanted to kind of, experiment with it, play around, learn how to buy things. My goal is to travel to another part of the world, like, I read articles about, and just take Bitcoin only. Of course, when you have ATMs, I found one ATM one time in the world for a Bitcoin. If you have ATMs, you can sort of cheat, but how can you find which hotels will accept Bitcoin today, and which restaurants and which retail stores and things like that? And I got the apps that could do that. And man, it's a goal of mine. It'd be hard. It'd be a different life for me, but I want to try that someday as kind of an adventure. So that's my purpose, not to invest. Yeah, when Bitcoin shot up sky high, everybody's commenting on the price. I don't want to be in that world because that's worries. You're always watching things. I don't do any stocks at all. I've never once used Apple's stock app because then you're watching the price every day. I don't want to watch the prices of things. I don't want to be financial. So I sold off all my Bitcoin but one. It's still enough to experiment with. I'll experiment.
Makes sense. I'm watching that price a little too much, I think.
What is it today? You think I would know? I don't watch prices.
$6,500?
Is it? Okay. Sounds lower than I remember when it was up.
I'm not buying or selling, so I won't stick to that.
Okay.
But how about...
It's scary because I don't invest and I made money on it. So I don't like that. I like making money, but not for the right purposes.
So talk to us a little more about blockchains, and we spoke a little bit in the back about Raspberry Pi and some hardware wallet things. Tell us a little more about how your experience with blockchain and the things that you really were passionate about growing up in terms of tinkering with devices, and how you see blockchain as something that's coming into your realm of that expertise.
Okay, and I'm not a blockchain developer, but blockchain to me in the early days was Bitcoin, and we were just talking about favorite technologies, gadgets, devices I've had in my life, and I'll tell you, probably to this day, I don't think I find one equal. It was the size of a credit card, barely thicker than a credit card, and it was a Bitcoin holder. And you could even hold your entire Bitcoin in there and not have any passwords anywhere else in the world. Nobody else, keeping track of your contents. The Bitcoin was in this device, thin little device. It had a keyboard. It had a display to point at QR codes, and it could create its own QR codes on the keyboard. It had a camera to look at QR codes. It had a fingerprint detector, and it was totally waterproof, totally sealed, nothing to get by. It was wireless charging. That was great. You just pointed a barcode, you want something you wanted to buy, run your finger down it, and your beep, it had a cell phone built in. It had a 2G cell phone built in. Oh my gosh. So I love it when so much technology can be so small, so compact, and do exactly the right thing. For today's blockchain applications, I think that the applications are often so different. You don't want to just go do another Bitcoin or another one that's been done. You want to have something special about yours. You want to have some little thing that other people haven't thought of or haven't constructed in this way. I'm involved in a couple of blockchain startups right now, but they aren't true blockchain startups. They're more like ongoing businesses that will use tokens. We'll use tokens kind of like the same way you might consider shares of stock, but for liquidity through markets in Malta and places. But it's really find people that are qualified that can actually do business, and that's my level of security. I don't want to go out there and be total raw experimenter or judge which blockchain applications I hear about are going to make it. It's almost like technology. You never know. You can have a great song. You can hear the greatest song in the world. Never goes anywhere. Nobody ever knows of that group or hears them. So we're in very much a random period right now. We don't really have that many big companies that control everything. For blockchain platform, that's what I like about Ethereum. Ethereum kind of has the big name right now. And Ethereum 2 is being worked on. I was on a panel recently with Vitalis himself. And the way he talks, his brain, I can't even follow.